All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our monthly meeting for September. First off, our next monthly meeting like this will happen on Tuesday, October 7th at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Next meeting, you can put it on your schedule. We will chat about updates for the month, but also I'm happy to answer other types of questions. We just had a 30 or so minute discussion about some other things, exercise and medication timing. I like talking about that stuff. Our exercise of the month is seated scooting. Let's see if I can forward this. So basically, for the most part, we can do some sitting scooting in a chair as well. But here, what we're really talking about is when we are down on the floor, scooting forward, backwards, sideways. This is a really good exercise for mobility, for strength, for being able to move around. So we're going to be incorporating this into classes all month long. It's a toughie, but it's a really good one for us. I love scooting. I'd say I do scooting pretty frequently, even when it's not the exercise of the month. Our member highlight is Bob, and he is another person. Hello, everyone. Well, I don't want to play the audio for that. So he's an awesome guy who lives down in San Diego area. And he also has been diagnosed about 5 years and experiences dyskinesia, which was bothersome to him. So he has been working on making medication changes. With exercise, he has been able to go down on his dose already, and that has helped with his dyskinesia. But he still is looking to make further positive changes with both exercise and with medication adjustments. So it's a really interesting conversation hearing him kind of what he's been working on so far and what his goals are. And I'm trying to think, there was something else. I think that's the main thing. He really shared a lot of good information about his process and what he's figured out so far. And the changes that he's made with medication. So I highly recommend watching that. And I will put the links to these videos in the daily email over the next couple of days, so you can watch them directly from there. Equipment highlight towel. Didn't get a chance to put this video in here. So towel is one of the things we like to highlight, some special equipment that we use here at Rogue, but we also like to highlight things that most people have at home that can really enhance exercise. So using a hand towel or a slightly bigger towel, we haven't really used like body towels that often. That would kind of be a lot to manage, I think. But a hand towel size where you can get those shoulders activated, stretch arms above the head, drop it down, do a shoulder, like a clean off your back, clean your back after you shower. Really great way to exercise and something simple to have. So Maddie made a video showing different examples of that, and we incorporate that into classes, I'd say pretty regularly. That's the most likely piece of equipment I'm going to add to a Power Moves class, other than weights, because we like to keep it simple and mostly have things that we use that people could that do have in their homes. So I'll include that video. Our research highlight is the effect of exercise training in improving motor performance and cortical motor excitability in people with early Parkinson's. So this is an article that was published in 2008. It was the very first study published showing benefit in the brain for people with Parkinson's with high intensity exercise. They used a measurement called transcranial magnetic stimulation, which TMS is something that can be used for treatment as well, but it also is something that can be used to measure excitability in the brain. And what they see is that excitability in the brain for people with Parkinson's, it's hyperexcitability. And they look at something called the cortical silent period and the duration of it. This cortical silent period has been correlated with how long people have had Parkinson's, their severity of symptoms. It improves with medication and other treatments. So it was a good measurement to see how does this change in response to exercise. This was almost 20 years ago now there have been a lot of studies showing benefits to the brain with exercise. But prior to this study, most exercise was being shown to be beneficial with strengthening muscles, improving flexibility, walking speed, physical characteristics, which is important. And we want to improve in those ways, but we're also really hoping that the exercise we do is helping the brain function better. So in this study, they had 3 groups. There was subjects randomized to a high intensity exercise group, and they were on a treadmill. They used body weight supported treadmill training, which basically means they had a harness on. And in some cases, they actually were lifting up a little bit of people's body weight when they were exercising. We have these harnesses, but we do not actually lift up people's body weight. We just use it for safety. But in the case of exercising on a treadmill, in some cases, that really helps you feel more comfortable to be on a treadmill at all, or to walk faster, take bigger steps, take your hands off, and exercise in a way on the treadmill where you get even more out of it. Putting a harness over your treadmill is something that is somewhat accessible to people. So we have members who have done this at home. Sometimes they have their treadmill in a garage and they connect that support to one of the beams in the garage. We people who have installed a harness in their home, they have the treadmill in their bedroom or in an exercise room or in the living room. So that's something, you can get in touch with a contractor and they can install that. And that can help you maybe be able to exercise even better with the treadmill. So they used treadmill training and they were doing high intensity. So they were measuring heart rate and really progressing the workout over time to go faster and longer and add inclines. Some people were jogging, but really working hard to get their heart rate up. Then there was a low intensity exercise group, and they were doing things like sit to stands and walking and balance and stretching. And not to say sit to stands in some cases can be quite challenging depending on how you're doing them, but they don't tend to elevate the heart rate as much, especially continuously. Maybe you get your heart rate up for a little bit, but then as soon as you stop, it comes right down. And you're not doing sit to stands for 40 minutes straight. You're doing, maybe 10 or so repetitions at a time. So overall, they kept their intensity level down, but they were moving. And then there was a zero intensity education group. Subjects in the 2 exercise groups completed 24 exercise sessions over 8 weeks. So what I would say about that is actually a short amount of time. That a lot of people are kind of just getting started with really good exercise 8 weeks in. And the main outcomes measures, so they did look at the UPDRS, Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale, to look at Parkinson's symptoms. They looked at biomechanical analysis of self-selected and fast walking and sit to stand. And then they looked at the cortical motor excitability that was assessed with the cortical silent period duration. A small improvement in UPDRS was observed in all groups. High intensity group subjects showed post-exercise increases in gait speed, step and stride length, hip and ankle joint excursions during self-selected. And then, of course, it's cut off where it's actually the most important. Move that down. So the high intensity group showed lengthening in the corticosilent period. So that is very significant because in people with Parkinson's, it was shorter. Lengthening it makes it more similar to healthy controls. And that was only in the high intensity group, where every single person in that group, I think it was 8 total, every single person had an improvement. So the findings suggest that dose-dependent benefits of exercise and that high-intensity exercise can normalize corticomotor excitability in early Parkinson's. So one of the first studies that showed improvement. What's happening? Now, did it stop the share? So too much excitability, not good. I feel like, did it go out of that share at some point in time? There we go. Maybe just now when I moved this. So I wanted to move that out of the way. So hyperexcitability, not good. And the way they showed the hyperexcitability was actually a shorter silent period duration. So when people did their high intensity exercise, they had a lengthening in that silent period, and the hyperexcitability came down to normal levels of excitability. It's difficult to explain. But so that was one of the first studies that showed neuroplastic changes in the brain with exercise, high intensity exercise specifically. So really cool study. But again, these are the types of things I feel like where people see, okay, high intensity exercise, and they get started with high intensity exercise and do too much, too fast. In the SPARKS-3 study, I talk about it in the video where I talked about this study. In the SPARKS-3 study, it's a 6-month exercise study. And the first 2 months, which I don't know now if it's 2 months, then 6 months, or it's 2 months as part of the 6 months, But the first 2 months are getting in shape so that you can do the high intensity exercise. So 2 whole months go from maybe not exercising at all to building up to, by the end of the 8 weeks, ideally doing that high intensity, get your heart rate up to those higher levels. But it takes time for you and your brain, your body to be ready to do that higher intensity exercise. All right, important dates for September. So we were closed for Labor Day. That was yesterday. Online educational meeting will be Tuesday, September 16th at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We are going to talk about cognitive health here. I've done one meeting in the past, but I think it was years ago. So I'm going to look at that one and put in some updates. The good news is physical exercise is also good for our cognitive health as well, but there are some other things that you can do. In-person women's group, we are going to meet in October. So not this month. We took a break for summer, but we'll be meeting in October is the plan as of now. Tomorrow is our first book club, September 3rd at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. The book, Build the Life You Want. Let's see, typos everywhere. And that's what happens when I press escape. It actually goes out of screen sharing instead of just going out of the PowerPoint where I can still screen share. I gotta fix my typos though. So we did hear some chatter on this book that this book was a little bit hard to get through. I have to admit, I started reading it and did not finish it myself. So that's okay. I think after you can show up to book club meeting, even if you haven't completed it, I think that there's still a lot to discuss. And then you can decide after book club if you do want to go ahead and finish the book, or if you are ready to move on to something else. I find sometimes with books where it kind of feels like they're repeating themselves a little bit. And the book probably could have been a shorter book and a little more concise and to the point. And sometimes it feels like they're just saying the same thing multiple times in different ways. So that might be what's true for this book. But yeah, I think it'll be a great discussion. We have discussion questions that you could look at and think about. That was in the daily email, both on Friday and Saturday, and I'll put it in the daily email tomorrow since the meeting's happening tomorrow. So Catherine will join all of you right after she teaches cardio class on Zoom. It'll be open forum. We have lots of ways that we can do book club, but we're just going to try it for this first time and see how it goes. And then if we want to do small group discussion, if we want to have more or less kind of structure or organization to it, we can. And in terms of the book, we're going to pick a new book each month. We will get ready to vote on the next book. And then we'll have our next meeting early November. So we'll have 2 months. This book club did come up a little bit fast because we were trying to fit in 2 before the end of the year. And we knew that if we got too close to the holidays, everyone would be really busy. So this first one, I think we only had like 5 or 6 weeks from when we made the decision on the book and the date and everything. So we will have more time before the next one, and we will do a vote again. So whatever book people are interested in reading, it can be fiction, nonfiction, historical. This one is a little bit more of kind of a health and wellness book, and those are always great, but we also this is one where someone mentioned that, just in thinking about building the life you want, it really makes you think about Parkinson's more. And some cases that's good, but in some cases we just want the opportunity to not think about Parkinson's. And so maybe we will divert over into historical fiction or nonfiction or something like that. So we'll get to vote on it, but your participation and feedback will help us know what works, what doesn't work, how we can make adjustments in the future. And we're excited to do this. I think it'll be pretty fun. Online class schedule updates. So we have added 2 additional classes at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We also added a new class format, which is our stretch and flow. Today was the first one. And so I did adjust the Tuesday schedule before we had power moves here. And I ideally wanted to have a power moves at each of the earlier, later times and a stretch and flow at each of the earlier and later times to try to spread things out across the schedule as much as possible. So we now will be doing power moves on Tuesdays at 7 a.m/10 a.m. That was great this morning. We had a good turnout for the early class. We have lots of members on the East Coast and Central and Mountain, that it's a good time to exercise. And we've got some Pacific time people who are up early in the morning and ready to exercise. So that class will happen. Boxing will still be at 8, and then the stretch and flow will be at 9. And then on Thursdays, the stretch and flow will be the early class, and boxing and power moves will stay the same. All the other days are the same for now. I did add the exercise coaching call onto the schedule as well. That will happen weekly. In terms of who's teaching classes, so Alex is teaching early mornings on Mondays. Marie is teaching the next 2. Maddie is going to be teaching the early morning because she hasn't been teaching power moves for a little while. So that gives her a chance to get in and get to teach power moves. She likes early mornings. Kate, for now, will be teaching boxing and the stretch and flow on Tuesdays. Maddie comes in for the early hit on Wednesdays. Kate is teaching the functional strength training class, and Catherine is teaching cardio. Alex is adding on the early morning stretch and flow on Thursdays. Marie will be taking over boxing on Thursdays from Catherine because Catherine is going to have an 8:30 start instead of 7:30 going forward. Catherine will come on to join for power moves though. And then on Fridays, Maddie teaches the early morning cardio. I come on for power moves, and then Kate teaches the strength HIIT class. Jamie will be coming back from maternity leave the beginning of October. So the schedule will adjust a bit then because she'll come back on to teach 1 or 2 online classes per week. So it's just a matter of exactly what schedule is going to work for her. So things will adjust a little bit then, but that will just be a change in who's teaching what classes. The plan is for this to be the consistent schedule for a while, not make any changes, see how it goes. For anyone, if the change on Tuesday affected, if you were taking 9 a.m. power moves and you want to keep doing power moves, for one, I would suggest that you try stretch and flow. I think that's good. But if you want to keep doing power moves, using a recording would be the best way if you want to keep it at that day and time and that class. And I think those are all the changes. So yeah, I'm excited. We'll give this a month, see how it goes. We're definitely open to feedback about the classes, the schedule, and especially the new class, but I think it's going to be a really good one. And this, I did not edit. So we'll just skip that. I didn't get a chance to schedule either. I am still working. It's pretty difficult to get a hold of neurologists and speakers. Both my schedule is busy to send, do the research to find them. And then many times I send one email out and it's hard for me to ever hear back from them. So I'm still working on these other topics, but in the meantime, we've got plenty to talk about ourselves, so that's okay. And now I can open it up for anyone who is watching the recording. If you have a question, thought, request, anything to discuss, feel free to email me at claire@roguept.com. I'd be happy to get back to you. And otherwise, that wraps up our update for September.